Let's get into, obviously, the big name rookie from this class. The number 1 overall pick, picked by the San Antonio Spurs, Victor Wembanyama, is stealing headlines right now. He was stealing headlines from the moment he made his first appearance in the NBA earlier this season, but especially now because he just had a duel of the ages versus the Greek freak Giannis the other night. He's an alien. He surpassed Unicorn. I think there's so many talented big men today with Towns and Porzingis and all these other guys. Like, Unicorn doesn't really do it justice anymore in terms of his skill set. So we have to find a new term. LeBron, some other guys have used the term alien. I think that's fair because his dimensions, the way he plays the game with his dimensions, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Trying to break down a little bit of what he's done so far here, just a little bit by the numbers. If we look at his stats, Avi, compared to only rookies, he's first in points per game, 19.2. First in rebounds, 10.1. First in rookie and league blocks per game. NBA blocks per game, number 1, 3.2 per game. Best shot blocker in the league as a rookie. You don't see that every day.
That's just ridiculous.
It is, man. He's first in league stocks. So stocks, for anybody that's uneducated, stocks plus block, or steals plus blocks equals stocks. He has 132 stocks on the season through just over 30 games played. So that's pretty crazy. Number 1 in the league. So those are the great numbers here so far for Wemby. The raw numbers are incredible. Here is where it's a little bit kind of iffy right now for him. It's the efficiency. Yeah. So if we dive into his percentages, 2-point percentage is 52. That seems pretty good. But if we look in the context of only big men, he's in the 18th percentile. So that's not great. 3-point percentage, 29%. He's only in the 29th percentile amongst big men. Free throw percentage is a little bit better, 78.6. So he's in the 64th percentile, a little bit above average. So he's a pretty solid free throw shooter. And, Avi, when it comes to his shooting percentages, I think that he'll be fine in the long run. The team situation is not ideal. He's playing with some guards that are just not great about getting him the ball in the correct spots. He's having to jack up a lot of tough shots, which he shouldn't have to as a big man. And a lot of the easy shots he would get on another team, his teammates missed him a lot of times on this team. So I wanted to point that out as well.
Watching him and watching the next guy we're going to talk about is just the defense. The amount of space he can cover in such a short period of time to just swat shots out of nowhere. I remember watching Mobley 2 seasons ago and thinking, oh my God, this is like the pinnacle of what rookie center defense looks like. And now we get Chet and Wemby coming in at the same time. And it just feels like a whole nother level. And that's nothing to take away from Mobley. Like, Mobley is excellent. But watching what Wemby and Chet can do at the rim already, while also being able to play multiple types of coverages to be able to shut down opponents is just, it's something else. Offensively, when I watch him, a lot of the times I feel like he's being overtaxed offensively with really difficult shots. As you said, he's not typically surrounded by lineups where they have guards or forwards who are particularly adept at passing him the ball in advantageous positions. And when he's asked to create, the difference between him and Chet right now, who we'll get to later, I don't want to go too far into him yet. There are still times where I feel like, okay, this is still a rookie who hasn't been in the league for a year the way Chet has. And I feel like you can feel it with his youthful inexperience and his scrawniness. Plus, his clog spacing is just terrible. Like the whole Sohan experiment,
abysmal.
Ooh, that was really rough to watch. And it made it really difficult for him. There's too many of these difficult turnaround shots, too many of having your center have to create. He's shooting 31.5% right now outside the restricted area. That is not good. It's really not good. Long term, I still have faith in his shot developing because of the free throw percentage and just because of how his shot looks. But right now, those are kind of all the issues leading to why his percentages are so low.
You said it, Avi. That's really what it comes down to. If you're on a team that has guards that are not very great about getting you the ball in the proper spots, on the roll, they miss him. There are some times to where, how can you miss a guy like that? If he has his arm straight up, he has an 8-foot reach pretty much, and you miss him, it's really discouraging sometimes as a fan. So I can only imagine how he feels. But there's some opportunities to where like, hey, this is going to be easy basket, and it goes from an easy basket to a shot he can make, but the percentages, like you said, are just going to be that much lower because he has to manufacture shots for himself. And I do want to give him credit for being a plus ball handler at his size.
Yes.
What he's able to do as well with the ball in his hands is nothing short of spectacular. That was on display during that Bucks game. There was a fast break. Damian Lillard was in front of him. Granted, it was only Lillard, but he had the ball in his left hand. He brought it around his back to his right hand, kept his footwork pristine, didn't travel, went off his right foot and dunked it on, I think it was Brook Lopez was coming back for the chase down block. So plays like that, the around the backs, the through the legs, he's very fluid with those ball movements, and it shouldn't be possible for a guy of his size, but he makes it happen, and that gives him even more of a runway to getting great shots. Now, there's limitations to that. He's obviously not going to be able to cross over much smaller players that are pretty quick and can stay in front of him. But for guys of his size, similar size, there's so much he can do with the ball to be able to get downhill. And that kind of brings us to another point that you touched on a little bit is his frame, as you put it, the scrawniness comes into play a little bit when it comes to getting to the rim. That also influences the percentages a little bit as well when it comes to shooting inside the paint, shooting at the rim. Now, he's actually a decent shooter at the rim. He's about 75%, which is really good. It helps him that he's 7'4", 7'5", and he can get a lot of these baskets off of dunks, some lobs in there. So that obviously gives him more of a safety net, more of a margin of error when it comes to finishing. His reach and just his ability to just make things happen above the rim, get the balls that other players can't get. It gives him just so many more abilities there. But the ball handling is incredible. The shot blocking, Avi, do you think he should be considered for an all defensive team as a rookie right now because of his work at the rim and other parts of the floor?
Considered? Oh yeah, definitely. I would definitely consider him. I mean, there's a lot of good centers this year, but I would definitely put him heavily into consideration. And it's still early, so
It
we'll
is.
see. But I think he has a real case to be on one of the two teams.
Me too. I mean, if you lead the league in blocks, obviously blocks aren't everything,
Yeah.
but you lead the league in blocks. He's an A+ rim protector, and he's not bad in space, which is crazy to say as a over
I
7 foot
know.
player. That's just wild. But he can hold his own. He's not going to get blown by every single time on the perimeter. Sometimes he will, but he can move his feet pretty well. The crazy long arms are incredible. Now, the one thing that's also putting a damper on his game right now is the minutes per game. He suffered a couple of ankle injuries back to back. So the Spurs made the decision to limit his minutes to about 24 a game. There's a little bit of flexibility there for a couple more minutes. I think he played a little bit more in the Bucks game, which I'm glad he did, just because it was a chance for them to win a game, which doesn't happen very often for the Spurs. So he got a little bit more time, but the 24 minutes per game, no back-to-backs, is a buzzkill, I will admit. But for Wemby, he's the future. He has the potential to be one of the best players in the league, one of the best players of all time. So you want to take it easy with him. I don't fault the Spurs for doing that, but it does hurt a little bit as a fan. You want to see him play as much as possible. So there's that part of it as well. But despite all that, he's having a phenomenal rookie season. I don't think you can ask much more of him. And I think as time goes on, he feels into his body, he gets more familiar with the game. He's just going to be that much better. Like there's no limit we can put on him in his future.
In particular, I think there's two things that I think will improve quickly over time. One, his handle. It's really, really good for someone his size, but I think it can still get a little bit better. There are
Mhm.
still times where I feel like he feels, I don't want to say too comfortable, but there are times where he's dribbling. And I don't think he realizes he needs to dribble even lower than he thinks he needs to because of how good NBA defenders are. So
Mhm.
that costs him sometimes. And the second thing, again, will just be circumstances. A lot of the times, when he is passing to teammates or teammates are passing to him, problems occur with miscommunication or just straight up dropping passes. And I think over time that'll clean up a little bit. And he has a little bit of a problem right now as well because he's so scrawny with shielding defenders away. As he gets stronger, I think he'll be able to use his offhand a little bit better, and that'll help his dribbling even more. So
Yes.
those are just some certain areas where I feel like, okay, his passing will start to get a little bit better. Okay, now he can handle even better. You can actually give him that 30% usage that he currently has, and he might actually be able to sustain it and produce effective shots. So I just think over time, we might actually see him develop into like a star stud offensive player despite being a center, which is
Yeah.
does not happen often.
And to kind of expand on your point about his position being a center, sometimes he is a center. Sometimes he functions as a four, which I think is another point for him just in terms of
Yeah.
his versatility. So he plays about a 50-50 split between the four and the five. I looked it up on Clean the Glass. They have him listed, I think it's like 49% at the four, 51% at the five. So pretty close to even. And it's interesting to see how he performs in those two positions. So when he plays at the four, he's a little bit better as far as his defense and rebounding. Obviously, he's playing against smaller players, so those statistics for him are a little bit better. When he's at the five, however, he's better as an offensive player. So for him, I think it's advantages as far as his handling, his shooting, his ability to just be a crazy finisher with that size. They're more pronounced when he's playing against fives than fours. So it's interesting to see that contrast. So for him, it's definitely going to even out, I think, as time goes on. And I'm interested to see where he kind of settles as a player in his prime. Is he going to be more of a four? Is he going to be a five? Does he bulk up enough to where he can play the majority of his minutes at the five? That's something I'm interested to see. But I think in any case, just the fact that he's able to play both positions right now, there is part of it is because of the roster construction. Sometimes he really just needs to play the five. That's something else I want to keep an eye on because it is interesting. He can really be one or the other. It's just based on, I think, how the roster is constructed and his development curve as far as how he grows as a player, mentally and physically.
I think he'll be a long-term five, but I definitely want to monitor it because again, some of that will be circumstance. Right now, the way they play, they kind of need him to play four sometimes because they'll play Zach Collins with him. But I
Right.
think over time he will settle into being a full-time five. But we'll see.